good conversation all around, but the topic of the day today is the census. And I just want to make sure that, it looks like we have a good group of community leaders to really talk about what we can do to move the census along and the importance of it in terms of so many different conversations. Just a simple, our pre-dialogue had a little bit to do about what the density of our town is. And when you think 2,200 per square mile, that's a pretty significant density. And I can guarantee you that, especially before 5 years ago, I would have never guessed that figure. I would have thought that Toms River was probably 800 or 1,000 in terms of density. So there's so many different layers to this. So I want to thank our mayor for joining us and also appearing in our video to help get the word out to the census. I'd like for him to kick us off a little bit on the importance. Then I'll turn to Vicky, who's our county census guru planner, to really lay out where the county is in terms of the census. Then to Dave Roberts, who's our local city on the ground contact person. Lynette is from the Congresswoman's office. And then Jeremy Grunin is here, because I think one thing that Jeremy and Heather from the Grunin Foundation, they're just so passionate about what goes on at the Jersey Shore and across the board in Ocean County to understand that philanthropic perspective, the way we secure funds, both from a philanthropic end and a governmental end, will definitely determine where our county goes over the next 10 years. And I think aside from Heather, I have Jonathan Petro, who's one of my other bosses on the Ocean County-wide board. So I'll ask him to say a few words. But Mayor, I'd like for you to kick us off and chat a little bit about what's going on in Toms River and how you feel the census is going.
Okay, thank you, Peter. Well, as we talked the other day, Peter and I met on Friday. We talked a little bit about the census. Right now, we're getting about a 60% response. So there's still 40% that we haven't heard from. A lot of the census is available online. It takes maybe 5 minutes to complete it. We're looking to count everybody in the town. It's irrespective of whether you have a home, you're homeless, we need to count everybody. And it's important because the census, as you know, is done every 10 years, but a lot of the federal funding that comes out of DC is determined by what our population is, what the count is. Also, interestingly enough, and more important in New Jersey right now, is that if we lose population, which we seem to be in New Jersey with people moving out, we could lose representation in the House of Representatives. So every year there's every census leads to a redistricting, and also the amount of representatives you have in the House of Representatives, which is critical. That's based on population. As we know, every state has 2 senators, but the amount of representatives you have is based on your population. So it's important and imperative that we count everybody. Also, as we talked with Peter, where the Y is doing the summer food program through the schools. And I think, Peter, what do we have? 3 of the schools that qualified, Walnut, City, and South Toms River in the regional school system. But we also had concerns that we may be missing people in some of the other schools like Silver Bay or North Dover. That would qualify for federal aid. So it's critical that we get the word out. If you didn't fill out a form, you'll be getting calls from census takers, and also probably an in-person visit starting middle of August through the end of October. This has to be completed the end of October and a report given to the government. So it's critical again that we get a count of everybody. Because, as I said, it's going to depend on our representation in Congress, and also the amount of money that will flow through some of these programs like CDBG, HUD grants for housing, and more importantly, the program that Peter's working on with the YMCA, our school lunch program. So again, can't emphasize enough that we need to all pitch in and do our part to make sure that we're all counted. So thank you for the opportunity, Peter, to speak to the group.
Thank you, Mayor. Just one question. From your perspective, what do you think? What can we do? Obviously, this is a collective group. a lot of community leaders on here. What can we do from our seat, assuming our networks and our circles have probably completed their census forms? What can we do to reach to the folks who are doing the shift work, the folks who are basically struggling to make ends meet? What can we do to support you and the leadership of the town in order to get the word out to those vulnerable populations?
I think one good avenue was, and you hit upon that Friday, there's a number of food programs that are out there. The council's doing one every Friday at the Presbyterian Church. You're doing them at the Y and also at Walnut Street. So if we can get the word out for the people who are coming for the food distributions, that might be the people that are vulnerable that aren't getting the message at home. So we've got flyers. Dave Roberts had flyers, which we were handing out Friday at the Presbyterian Church, and I think you had some at Walnut Street. So we need to get them out. They're bilingual. They're in Spanish and in English, so that hopefully we can get it to those that have English as a second language, not their first language. I think that communication's got to be really strong. And when we did the little promo Friday, you were able to put that, also make it in Spanish, which was, I thought, a great idea, because there are a number of people that don't, English isn't their first language. So to get the message out to the entire community was very powerful. And I thought you did a good job with that on Friday. I thank you for doing that. In case you don't know, Peter let each of us, myself and Dave, do a little presentation, and then he would translate it after we spoke. And I think that was a powerful way to get the message out. So I thank you for that, Pete.
And again, I want to thank you, and I want to thank Dave. And I think it's just important that we have to get our elected officials, irrespective of your local politics, out in front of this, because I can tell you the amount of distrust and fear for the census. One of the things is Dave and the mayor and I talked about on Friday. Listen, the reality is many of those people weren't here in 2010, and the whole shift in the dynamic of our world has changed, that the fear is very real. So saying, hey, you don't want to be inconvenienced by a knock on your door isn't going to work this time around, because quite frankly, they ain't going to the door to begin with. So we're going to definitely have to come up with more creative and informed ways on how to reach out to those hard to reach populations. Vicki, do you want to touch quickly? I'm going to turn it over to Joe to speak for South Toms River. Vicki, can you talk about the county-wide plan and overall where the county is in terms of the census?
Okay, sure. So we have a complete count committee that has all the municipalities, the county departments, and nonprofit partners that we started in August. And since then, a lot of our partners have done an amazing job in outreaching to different people throughout the county. For example, we're very afraid about missing all the seniors and the snowbirds, but we got out in front on that, and they've completed the census. They stepped up to that, and actually they completed paper questionnaires. We received a grant from the New Jersey Department of State, and we're able to pass it through to a couple of the municipalities that had higher low self-response rates, such as Toms River and Lakewood, for them to outreach within their communities, partner with the trusted voices like you had touched on, the trusted voices such as churches and synagogues and community centers and people within the communities that can explain to their constituents that the census is confidential. It's absolutely confidential. It's Title 13 of federal law that prohibits anything about the census, whether the data collection, to be used for any other reason other than population counts. Any other department, it's confidential and it's safe. So we also pass through funding to the Ocean County Library, because they have 21 branches throughout the county. So now that the state is opening up and the library is open, people can come to the library. There's staff there that can help them complete the census on when the library, we have a dedicated library laptop that they can do the census on. There's people that can help them. And in addition, we have census partnership specialists that work with the Census Bureau who are going to all these locations. They're bilingual. There's also, they have specialists too that speak other languages if that's needed as well. And they're able to also enumerate people on the spot. And I want to be clear that the census, which was, the first census was in 1790, it counts everybody, regardless of citizenship status, regardless of age. If it's a baby is 0 years old, then that baby's counted in your household. It counts everybody who's in the United States as of April 1st, 2020, where you live most of the time. So if you're a college student and you live away at college, you should be at your home now. You should be putting in your address, your college address, if you live away. If wherever you live most of the time as of April 1st. And again, talking about the partnership specialists, they are setting up around the county, in the library, in the community centers, to help people complete their census right on the spot. And like the mayor was saying, that starting August 11th, that's the day that the field operations are scheduled to commence. And that was postponed because of COVID. But every household that has not completed their self-responded to the census, an enumerator will be coming out to help them do the census, and they'll be knocking on doors. So if you don't want to be bothered by someone knocking on the doors, then go online and complete it. It's 2020census.gov. You can do it by phone, which is 844-330-2020. And you can, if you got a paper census questionnaire, you can mail that in. I will also say that you need to beware, especially for community.
Vicki, can you repeat the
Sure.
numbers slowly? Because I think we are going to share this on our social media. So
Sure.
it's important, even though we have a small and mighty group here, that we want people to have the information.
Sure.
And if
Sure.
you could put it in the chat as well.
Sure, we'll do. The website, 2020census.gov. That's 2020census.gov. The phone number is 844-330-2020. And that's also the phone number that a person can call if they want to verify the employment of somebody who's on their doorstep, knocking on their doors, to make sure that they're a census employee. Because we also want our residents to be aware of scams. And I have a list here that the census will never ask for your social security number, bank or credit card numbers, passwords. They'll never ask for money or donations or anything on behalf of a political party. They will have a logo on their bag and laptop, and they will have a valid photo ID with a watermark. So again, if you have any qualms about somebody, then call that number. It's the same number that you can also do your census by phone.
Vicki, just a quick question again on that. So
Sure.
I just want to, obviously, aside from the census forms being available online, that's, I believe, a big change, at least the
First time.
available of it. First time in the census. Second, as I listen to you talk about people walking in the streets and knocking on doors and having kiosk at the library, I haven't heard too much about COVID and PPE, social distancing, safety precautions for the enumerators. Can you talk to us a little bit about what kind of safety precautions the census staff will be taking?
Absolutely. So, and again, I'm with the county. I'm not with the Federal Census Bureau, but I have talked with our partnership specialists about this issue too. And they are going to be complying with all safety, COVID, social distancing protocols. They'll be wearing masks. They'll be keeping social distancing of the 6 feet away. And they'll be wiping down the surfaces. So they'll be complying and they'll be safe. So they'll be doing that at the library as well as the partnership specialists that are enumerating people on the spot.
Great.
And-
Thanks,
and
Vicki.
oh, sure.
Yep.
Peter, can I ask one question?
Sure,
Vicky,
Mo.
Vicky, now you said this college students should register when they're at school, but now since April, they've been home. So shouldn't they be registering at their home address and not their college address? Because a lot of the colleges are, my understanding, is they're going back online. I think Rutgers is going to be online. So would they be better, or shouldn't they be counted, let's say in Toms River or Brick, wherever they're living, rather than their college dorm?
That's a really good question, because traditionally the census counts people where they live most of the time, and as of April 1st. So COVID kind of muddies the water, and the guidance that I've heard is that I think they're looking at that the students are home temporarily, and I can look into that more and get back, provide more
I think that's
guidance on that.
Yeah.
great. Joe, are you on the line? Joe Kostecki from South Toms River.
Hi, Ann. How are you?
As Bill pointed out on Friday, unfortunately, our business administrator in Toms River is out on leave, but Joe is representing South Toms River, and we want to hear a little bit about how South Toms River is doing.
I would love to. I believe, however, Mayor Hanshai is on the call as well, so I will defer to him first, and I can
Great.
follow
Where
up
is
with
he?
anything. How's that? Sir, are you on?
Yes, good afternoon, everybody.
Oh, I apologize, Mayor. Yep.
Oh, that's okay. I get it all the time. We're having a town council meeting tonight, and I'm planning on having a little bit of a long-winded presentation on this. We're going to be using Zoom for our council meeting tonight, but I have a pretty good outline on everything we're touching on today. So we're going to be addressing that this evening at our town council meeting. Thanks.
Great. How do you guys feel it's going in South Toms River in terms of response rate and the services with the census?
Well, I can only go by the county numbers, which seems to be pretty well better than the New Jersey state numbers, although they're very, very close with each other. But I would say that the response rate is on the average, I guess, with the state.
Great. Can you guys share either Joe or the mayor, can you share a phone number or website or email address that people can respond to if they live in South Toms River, if they have questions on the census?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Our
We have
borough
our website. Yeah. Go ahead, Joe.
No problem. The website is southtomsriver.org, so it's simple with that. Our main phone number for the borough hall is 732-349-0403, and at the prompt, just listen for the municipal clerk's office. We're the first and second one on the prompt. And just to follow up, I mean, our numbers, considering we are a little bit more of a transient community than other towns surrounding us. We have 40% of our homes who are renters, and irrespective, we want to make sure everybody gets counted, and just in case they move. And as Mayor Hill said, we want to make sure that we can get everybody. And we have a young population, we have a diverse population, and with those moving to college or those moving just from their one home to a house, maybe to another rental, we want to make sure they're counted. So we were actually very happy to work with the census this week, and we were able to open up our recreation building for the supervisor trainings, and that's hugely important for us because we are a hard to count community, and we can supplement any minor or major deficiencies where there's a low count, and hopefully we can get a strong representation and add to a building community there. So we are active on Facebook, we're active on Instagram. If we're on Facebook, please go to Borough, all spelled out, Borough of South Toms River. Little long, but hey, we're the little town with the big heart, and we're here to grow too, just with everybody else. So if there's anything I missed, Mayor, please let me know. But I believe we are in a good position right now, a little higher count than maybe some of the other areas, which is good. We're a little over the average, and I think we're moving in the right direction.
Great. Well, Joe and Mayor, want to thank you. And again, we also want to thank you for supporting our summer meals program. You guys are our #1 site of the 3. I think we give out 220 meals there on Friday. So we want to thank you for keeping to get the word out and encouraging families. And come the fall, we're going to transition to a child and adult community food program. So we're going to be serving dinners, hopefully out of the same 3 locations, to ensure that we keep people fed throughout the school year. Lynette, I want to pass it on to you. Lynette represents our Congressman Kim, who's been a powerful advocate on so many levels during this crisis. And thank you for joining us.
Hey, Pete, thank you for having me. So I'm just here to lend support on whatever way I can. We're on calls, our office is on calls with the district census people every week, hearing about what's coming down the pike, the push week, the numerators going out. So we sort of keep our pulse on it. Congressman Kim did have a town hall Vicki was on, and I think Mayor Kelleher and Sal Tomsher was on with the mayors, just talking about the importance of the census and talking about different ideas and ways that we can encourage our residents to do it. One of the things, our office, we get calls from people that I wouldn't expect to call the congressman's office. It's been a learning curve, but we have gotten calls from people wondering if it's safe to do the census. A senior who didn't have a computer. This was before the letters went out, knowing where they should call. So any sort of information like that that we could give out is really helpful. And the one thing that I have heard is that when people do call, they do get a person, and it's quick and it's nice, and it's not like calling unemployment or something like that. It's a pretty seamless process when people call. So that's a good thing. One of the things that I was thinking about, Vicki, is I'm wondering if you've ever connected with the federally qualified health clinics like the OHI or any of those. That's an area that people go through that are lower income, might have second languages. That is a trusted source. They did get money. They did get years money to do mobile testing. I'm not sure if that's started yet, but that might be an area to connect with as far as getting some people who you might miss traditionally. So if you haven't done that, I could connect you with the person to do that. And then the other question I was wondering about was in nursing homes. Do those people get counted in any sort of stand? Do you have that worked out? Because they haven't started in-person visiting yet, but I didn't know if you had connections to all of those. So those are the 2 things that I was thinking about. But just really here to lend support. If there's anything our office could do, we seem to be a connector. So if there's any particular places that you want to reach out or anything, just let me know and keep us in the loop. That's it. Thanks.
Lynette, could you share the contact information again for the Congressman's office and any phone lines?
Yep. So it is, so you could, I'll put it in the chat room, but basically we're pretty much working remotely now. So I could put my cell number in the chat room for anybody but Jeremy Grunin, who can't get it, but everybody else could get it.
What a perfect segue, Lynette. So the person that nobody wants to call, but everybody calls about 5 times a day.
Exactly.
Jeremy, thank you. I know you got to run, and thank you for making time. You always do for something that's important for our community. Can you talk a little bit about what you're seeing in the philanthropic community and how important it is to get the word out about the census?
Yeah. So first of all, thank you for putting this together, and this is great. Number one, we all know, or we should know, and if you don't know, then you should educate yourself, that New Jersey is the #1 contributor to the U.S. economy, meaning that we give more tax dollars than any state in the U.S. and get less services in return. And that's simply because of our census, right? Because we don't get our fair share of services because we we historically have not been counted accurately and appropriately. This is our opportunity to do things right and to fix that. So what ends up happening invariably is more and more pressure is put on the nonprofit community and the foundation community to bridge those gaps in dollars, because the less dollars we get from the federal government, the more dollars have to be made up either from local taxpayers or from nonprofits and philanthropy. And the reality is that gap can never be fully closed. So this is our opportunity. We were, frankly, the philanthropic community has been putting a full court press on this for about the last 2 years, understanding the importance of this count, understanding also that we have that there are some underlying fears across any political affiliation relative to trust. That we have a lot of trust issues with our government, both parties. That's not meant to be a Democrat or Republican thing. We also have distrust among our undocumented communities who are concerned that every time they sign their name on something or raise their hand for something, that they could be putting themselves on another list for and not a good one. So the headwinds were strong here. And then, of course, throw in COVID, and it's even worse. So it's very, very important that everybody get out, that everybody get counted, that everybody understand that there are no repercussions to being counted, but that we have to get an accurate count so that we can get the dollars that we need as a state.
Great. Thank you, Jeremy. Dave, I want to turn it to you, and it's interesting. You probably have the hardest task right now. Is I've heard three different hard to count populations. So there's the Latino population, there's the college population. Actually, it's 4. There's the college population that we need to know about. There's seniors in nursing homes, and then there's renters. So can you speak to a little bit about that? Joe spoke to it in South Toms River, and from Toms River's perspective, how are you approaching those different populations?
Well, yeah, those are all legitimate concerns, and I think again, and even Ocean County, as diverse as it is, the issue in those with those 4 examples that you gave are going to vary from town to town. And I think in Toms River, we felt that the focus was really going to be in 3 areas. We knew that our hard to count tract, census tract, we have one census tract that is considered the hard to count tract. It's located basically between, it's west of Hooper Avenue, east of 166, north of 37, and south of Bay Leaves. So it's that rectangle that includes Toms River North High School at the top, at the northern section, and Walnut Street Elementary School in the southern section. One of the things that when the county made their grant available that they passed through from the Department of State, in looking at that census tract, the thing that really jumped out at me was, first of all, that Walnut Street School was particularly in the center of that tract, and also that when you look at the enrollment in that school, has the highest enrollment of Latino students, which means that those kids were a natural avenue to try to reach the parents, and we had fully expected to be able to send home flyers with their backpacks, to use the school as kind of a focal point, to set up a kiosk there so that on April 1st we could have a paid Spanish interpreter there available who would be able to enumerate them. It was all geared on that, and then COVID kind of just derailed that whole strategy. But that was certainly the focus in terms of reaching the Latino population, and we've switched our strategy now to Latinos Unidos newspaper, full-page ads, things like that, to try to get the word out. And actually the meal program, which was really a result of the response to COVID, has been kind of one of our primary avenues to try to get the information out. However, in Toms River, and we're not alone, I would add another group that is hard to count, and that's the homeless population. And really, that's where a community focus such as the outreach that you're encouraging with this town hall meeting, there will be a day when the census, COVID permitting, when the census takers are out, and that there is one particular time where they go out and try to find where the homeless are. And as we all know, it's a transient population. It moves from place to place. Very difficult task to be able to count that population. And they are just as important to be counted as everyone else, if not more so, because a lot of the funds that that Jeremy was talking about are towards, and especially the nonprofits in Ocean County and elsewhere, are the primary groups that deal with that population. So again, I think those are our two. We were concerned, as Vicki mentioned, about making sure that the seniors got counted and that they got counted in the right state. Because as Vicki mentioned, the way the census works, it's where you spend most of your time. So it's 6 months plus 1 day. If you spend 6 months plus 1 day in New Jersey and not Florida, even if you don't happen to be in New Jersey on April 1st, you should be counted in New Jersey and not Florida. So, and those two states were kind of having a little bit of a tug of war over the senior population. I think one of the things that happened with COVID that we wouldn't have been able to anticipate is that a lot of the senior populations that would have been moving to Florida or doing their snowbird routine may have stayed home. And then the other thing that we noticed is, as the mayor can speak to, our senior center was one of the few that remained open in Ocean County. I don't know if we were closed for that long a period of time, and we probably reopened before a lot of the others did. So that staff there has been supremely tried with trying to administer that population. They've been extremely busy. They get a tremendous demand, and they've been communicating about the importance of the census through that whole time frame. So I think we're finding that in a lot of the towns in Ocean County with the large senior population is where you're getting the highest counts. Places like Manchester and Berkeley, for example, which are extremely slanted population-wise towards the senior citizen population, have the highest response rates. So I think in this case I think the senior population seems to have been reached, and they seem to be responding. I think in Tom's River, our primary focus is going to continue to be, because for all the reasons everybody's mentioned about the distrust of anything that reeks of government, and it's hard to communicate, as you observed, Peter, that they probably won't come to the door. They're not used to getting people come to their door for anything good. So, this is no exception to that. And to try to tell them that Title 13 has severe penalties for any divulging of any information it'd be difficult to get that message across. And I think probably the key thing, as you also mentioned, is we have the trusted voices are the ones we need to try to find. And we've tried to make some outreaches to a couple of the places of worship in town that we know have Spanish-speaking, if not Spanish-speaking congregations, that at least services in Spanish, and try to get the word out there. And I think we've made some progress in that regard with at least the part of the difficulty there is not all the places of worship are meeting in person. Some are still doing live stream services exclusively. So in one case, the Christ Episcopal Church, for example, which has a Latino group that meets separately, they are participating with the partnership partners from the census and trying to relay a lot of that message out electronically. So that's basically where we're at this point. It's really the homeless population, which is one strategy, and reaching the Latino population in our hard to count tract is the other focus that we're trying to make.
Dave, if I may for 1 second, to your last point about houses of worship, I work with another group on a reopen project that involves faith-based organizations. And while 100% right, there are many pastors and rabbis are scared to even open their doors because social distancing isn't really possible when you've been going to the same church for the last 30 years with people and your inclination is to give them a big hug. And they, of course, don't have the appropriate PPE. But what they are finding is that their online participation is higher than it ever would have been had they been in person, right? So there really is a great opportunity to get to more people electronically than there even was when churches and synagogues were in full service.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, agreed. I mean, I think I can only speak for my own church, and we found that the views that we were getting on our live stream, and now we're doing both for the folks that about half the congregation stays home and the other half wants to be in person. So it's kind of split right down the middle. We found that we were getting probably, if you took the number of views and you assume that there were families viewing together, that only counts as one view. So it's probable that some of those numbers are even underestimated because you're having multiple people view a service at the same time. One of the churches that we're trying to work with is Church of Grace and Peace, and they have been having multiple in-person services for a couple of weeks now. Their 3 o'clock Sunday service is entirely in Spanish, and we're trying to get a partnership team out there from the Census that can even just set up a table in the parking lot and talk to folks as they're coming out. So yeah, we're kind of making this up as we go along. That's what we've been doing throughout COVID, but it couldn't have happened. It's bad that it happened at all, of course, but to happen in a year when we needed so much interpersonal communication to get a good census count really tied our hands behind our back. But even despite that, to see that our numbers are tracking fairly close to 2010, I think we should take some solace in that, because we certainly have been working at a disadvantage.
You know, to give some context to Jeremy's perspective, for our organization, we are by no means as powerful as a faith-based institution, but our social media outreach is 211,000. So people who've engaged with us, that's probably 4 times anything we've ever done. And the Grunin Foundation made available to us Zoom subscriptions and YouTube. We're at 45,000 people who have either taken a class or participated on a Zoom call. So I think it's critically important that we do, and it's even given me something to think about. How do we put some trailers to some of our content, because we know which content is getting the most views, and a lot of it gets repeat views. Jean is one of our staff. She asked a great question. I believe it's under the Constitution. It's October 30th is the last day for the census, or is it the 31st?
Okay, I can answer that. So the answer to that is because of the pandemic, the census timeline has been extended out. So they will allow self-response, the online self-response, up to October 31st. But the census is pushing now because we don't want to lose the moment. We don't want to lose the momentum.
So Vicki, what we've learned at the Y is you got to give people a hard date. So you give us a good aspirational date that we got to get out the word out for, and we'll stick to that. So we'll let you pick the date.
I'm saying I like to see the momentum, the push, by August 11th.
Okay, we got a date.
Realistically, they still will be able to submit the census up to October 31st. But you know, if people don't do it right away, they're not going to do it. You know, so we want to push to get it done. Just get it done. Do it now, and because otherwise, if you put it off, you're going to get a knock on the door. Yep. Get it done. Go online. Go to a library or to where the partnership specialist is. Call the phone number, or if you have a paper questionnaire that came in the mail, send that off, and and then you're done. You've done your civic duty for that.
You know, Dave, back to your comments. I just got to really thank and appreciate you speaking to the homeless population. It is such a critical population that we know the history of our town. And I remember I came here 5 years ago. You brought up homelessness as an issue, whether it was at the county level or at the city level. People looked at you like you had 3 heads. And I knew at the Y, we had 3 people who were homeless squatting in our backyard, right? They were squatting by the recycling plant over by the developments. It is such a critical population that it's reassuring. And again, just like it's important for our elected officials to hear and acknowledge and humanize our immigrant population, those who are hungry, it is so critically important to hear the city leadership humanize and rightfully acknowledge that not only is it the homeless who live traditionally as homeless, but when we talk about our college age students, when we talk about kids who are couch hopping, families who are couch hopping throughout the Towns River, we really need to acknowledge and make sure that they're all counted.
Pete, let me just hop on that also. We also know how unfortunately ineffective the point in time survey typically is.
Yep.
Right? Because it's not the best communicated survey, and it's certainly not the easiest to get folks to a certain spot to be counted on a particular day and time. So we need to really make it a concerted effort to make sure we're doing better when it comes to the census.
Yep. Thank you. I wanted to keep this to 45 minutes, and I think we're going to be right on time because we probably started recording about 3 or 4 minutes into it. So hopefully 42 minutes will be a good size video to post. We will post it. We will share it. If you'd like to share it on your municipal websites, share it on the county website, please feel free to do so. And again, if we need to have another one of these, maybe right around August 11th to celebrate, I'm certainly willing to do this. Again, I think for us at the Y, everybody knows we're a community-based agency. We serve those. We see the need of the people and the families who need it most. So it's imperative for us and for our organization to ensure that everyone is counted and that everyone is treated as a human being. It's incumbent on our mission, and I want to thank you guys for taking the time to support our mission. And I want to thank Andrea, who is behind the mask there at our front desk. She's our host for this meeting, recording it, and will help us get it out to everyone. Thank you so much.
Thank you.